was was well, about white supremacists in the military. Black vets. This article: Black vets once surprised military members storm the Capitol. Now they want the Department of Defense to root out far-right extremism in its ranks. Um, you can look at the article, but he talks about in 2010, while serving as an Army combat medic, I was stationed on a former Nazi base in Western Germany. The history wasn't inconspicuous. In fact, white soldiers were often infatuated by the sneak selfies beside a swastika embedded into a brick building not far from the barracks they called home. Reminiscent of the Third Reich that hadn't been wiped clean in the decades since American forces had taken over the garrison. American soldiers casually reading Hitler's Mein Kampf, in uniform no less, were largely viewed as harmless. The pervasive use of Confederate symbols was simply an innocuous display of Southern pride, and right-wing talking points and conspiracy theories disguised as office banter were widely tolerated as inconsequential. So it came as little shock when the identity of nearly one-fifth of those apprehended for the siege on the Capitol earlier this month was revealed to be both President and former members of the military. The country watched in horror as images of white mobs donning military-grade equipment and racist paraphernalia stormed a session of Congress as it sought to certify the 2020 election. Many of those leading the insurrection at the behest of Donald Trump were veterans whose radicalization had long been forewarned, and whose loyalties had officially shifted. For years, rallying cries from veteran advocates citing a rise in right nationalism within the ranks coincided with mounting efforts by extremist groups to recruit soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen for their weapons training and combat expertise. It all came to a violent head within the halls of Congress on January 6th. The insurrection has left little doubt that white supremacist extremists remain the deadliest domestic terror threat in the United States. While racism is an ever-present undercurrent in our nation's military, leaders at the Department of Defense continue to downplay the rise in breadth of right-wing ideology among troops, preferring to paint incidents of racial hatred as fringe, not systemic. The siege of the Capitol building has shattered that lie. For many service members, the tenor of the events of January 6th was not unfamiliar. As early as 2017, 1 in 4 reported having white nationalist sentiments espoused within their units. Congressional efforts to address this were thwarted in the 2020 National Defense Authorization Act, as a provision calling for the screening of new recruits for white nationalist sympathies was vetoed by President Trump. In the military, unchecked white nationalism places a tax on black service members. Psychological safety, said Timothy Berry, a graduate of the United States Military Academy, West Point, and former field artillery officer, is a cancer to unit cohesion and military readiness. An honest reckoning around race has historically been avoided by the Department of Defense, an institution whose bureaucracy and public relations machine has been a scapegoat from accountability. But black veterans are beginning to fight back, forcing the Department of Defense's hand by compelling the release of confidential survey data that paints a grim picture of the state of racial affairs across the military. So, problem's not new, said Coretta Gray. I skipped. A former Air Force judge advocate, sorry, miss, who now works extensively to bring light to stark racial disparities in military justice. Black service members often operate in work environments that are hostile and feel powerless to change it. retired General Lloyd Austin, who was confirmed as the nation's first black person as the Secretary of Defense. He said African American, but I said black person. Friday, and whose appointment has been widely viewed as a gesture of good faith by the Biden administration to diversify top military brass, has vowed to root out racism and extremism. It remains unclear how he intends to accomplish this mission, or whether he supports the legislative efforts to reshape the military's equal opportunity police policies and procedures proposed by Senator Gillibrand. One thing is certain: if serious and transformative steps are not taken, the military risks further exacerbating the threat posed by right-wing extremists by allowing its ranks to be a training ground, and the safety and careers of black service members will continue to be collateral damage. So racism in the military. This man right here, he commented, way back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, I was a young troop in the Air Force. Probably a dozen times I heard people tossing around the N-word, similar term like they were talking about painting the house. I called a couple of folks out on it and got pulled aside with the "better watch your ass or you're going to get a blanket party" speech. I had to defend the military's diversity training more than once or twice. I finally just started saying, imagine that we're in charge and we treat you like you've treated us. How does that feel? A couple of folks were honest enough to admit that they hadn't considered it that way before. They were bothered by it. Everybody else went with it wouldn't bother me defense. Yeah, okay, macho man. Another former veteran. No, not former veteran. I was in the Army in the early 1990s. I had a neo-Nazi as a barracks neighbor. Only one sergeant had enough sense to realize that he didn't belong. After years of being right in front of everyone and openly having Nazi meetings in his room, still don't know if he was actually kicked out because I transitioned shortly after he confronted him. The sergeant seemed like he wanted that jackass gone. It says, the problem with rooting out white supremacy is that it's not as simple as finding everyone who has a Klan outfit hidden in their closet. Rooting out members who actually belong in groups does help. That's what he says. But I guarantee that many of the people who are possible problems probably don't consider themselves white supremacists or belong in any gang. I served myself, and a lot of these guys I served with are okay people who probably consider themselves not racist and fairly progressive, or as progressive as you can get as a conservative. Yeah, I'm confident that probably quite a few of those very same people probably believe in QAnon, probably believe that the election was stolen, and probably would have stormed the Capitol. Why? Because Republicans' current radicalization of conservative ideology add to that the toxic environment that's been part of the military, and you have people ready to join the militia. This one is good. Cool. Sure, but again, I think it's far more complex than that. There I took whatever. But it's not the important part of this quote. What he says. Absolutely, white supremacy is the cause of this, but I simply don't view white supremacy in terms of Nazis and skinheads. White supremacy is the viewing point that whiteness is the default. It is the cornerstone of our country, and we are all complicit in it by being products of said country. A lot of assholes are allowed to fail upwards because we view white men as objectively being great. White men are conquerors, white men are alphas. Because we don't see empathy and compassion as necessary for success, it is not surprising that toxic people end up in power and toxicity always rolls downhill. So, yeah, the military does got a lot of problems. You know, wow, racism. You know, a lot of white, a lot of white supremacy and white supremacists. You know, needs to be cleaned out. But yeah, let's hope it does happen. Let's hope it is cleaned out.